Good evening, everyone, and a very warm welcome to another session of WiTalks Leadership Connect. My name is Sarina Singh, and I'm delighted to host the session today. I am now a mentor, coach, and social entrepreneur after having had a fantastic career as a banker for 27 years. I'm absolutely delighted to have with us today Mukund Nair. Before I go on to introduce Mukund, please do keep asking any questions as we go through the session, and I will pick those up during the time that we are speaking or towards the end. Once again, welcome, and without further ado, an introduction for Mukund Nair. Mukund, in his role as the People Enablement Lead, is responsible for defining and implementing Nagarro's HR strategy. Mukund has a background in technology and management with a master's in computer applications from IMT Ghaziabad and is an MBA from the Indian School of Business. Mukund has more than 17 years of global experience across technology, delivery, management, and HR functions. Over the past 5 years in Nagarro, he has transitioned from delivery management of a key account to leading L&D for Nagarro and now overall human resources. As a part of his role, he is responsible for working closely with key stakeholders within the organization to spread Nagarro's culture as well as conceptualize new offerings or align existing policies to solve various people practice related needs. Mukund, a very, very warm welcome and thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you, Serena, and thank you to the WIT team for hosting me. Really looking forward to this conversation.
Super. With ACE, Women in Technology ACE has now been working across various areas of supporting women to get into key decision-making roles, to keep supporting their career throughout, as they move in their journeys, and to be able to handle a lot of aspects, which become roadblocks in their professional lives. And to that point, our topic for today is, can I have it all, personal or professional? And I'm sure that's a very, very interesting topic. I've always had very strong views on whether you can have it all or not. However, we'd like to hear from you, Mukund, on a few things. So let me start by a few questions. COVID-19 has played a very big role in speeding up digital transformations in the tech space. And now the world is slowly kind of turning around. Um, with this new change and technology coming to also play a very vital part in this new normal, how do you see the people related or the human capital aspects getting shaped up in the next few months and years?
Yeah, it's just incredible, right? A year ago, we wouldn't even have imagined this as a topic of discussion, right? Yeah, I think last year, March is when things started exploding and changing, and it's just remarkable where we are today. And it is going to have a profound impact. So I would say there were many things in the pipeline, but they were going at a snail pace, and now they're going at rocket launcher pace. And I think on the human side, we are already seeing changes, but I think what we're going to see more and more of, and technology playing a role, I would say three key areas that I can think of. One is on the collaboration and the flexibility aspects, right? I can see uh, the experiences that we have in the virtual world becoming more and more mirroring closer to what we used to experience when we were in the physical world. So already this session is a way of the type of virtual program. Otherwise, we might have been doing it in some auditorium somewhere and only reaching out to a small segment of the population. Now we are able to hopefully reach out to a much more diverse set of population. I would say this level of collaboration, this level of this thing is just going to go deeper. I would think tools like AI, AR, VR are going to make the experience much more immersive, and to us in our jobs give much more flexibility on when and how we want to do work. So for sure, I can see that just improving leaps and bounds. The second I would say is around our productivity. Uh, uh, it's just like my wife and I were discussing. It's just incredible that while the travel time for us to get to office maybe was, for me it was less. It was 30 minutes, but that whole routine to get out of bed and get to office, right, and get ready and get the kids ready, get them to school, all of it, you end up losing 2.5 hours. And now when I look back at that, it just feels so incredibly wasteful, right? Uh, and with that said, right, even when we are working, like Cortana is now my best friend, where the suggestion that she's making with respect to, this is how you should focus your time. You seem to be collaborating with a lot of these folks, right? So it gives me a sense of what I'm doing. So the impact on my productivity, I can see it. I can see changes in the way I'm working. I can see changes in the way I'm collaborating. So I would say for sure, getting a better sense of like productivity will start moving away from did the person leave at 8 o'clock in the night to actual work done. I think so. We're going to see a lot of change there. The third bit, which I would say is which should come as I think for at least for us as individuals, something which should be a welcome relief is the elimination of these geographical barriers when it comes to job mobility. uh, Talent is now really playing on a global platform, and it's just dramatic as the effects of COVID have started sort of relaxing. We are already seeing this, the expansion of organizations into being more accepting of location not really being a barrier. Uh, I think with the use of technology and with the impact that COVID has had, that mindset people have, people, we used to have a work from home culture before. So close to 25% of our population used to not be in office. But we used to hear this noise, right? Why are you encouraging this? This is not how work gets done. There will be slacking. All of those arguments they don't exist, right? They've been empirically proven to be wrong, right? So we have 1 year of data to do that. So I can see this mobility and the ability to, take geographical barriers out of the picture. I see that happening a lot more. So these are at least three big trends I see in the workplace.
Thank you, Mukund. I must remember to now start
Mm.
using Cortona too. I haven't yet
Yeah.
taken any advice from her, but that's my takeaway from an immediate point of view. You spoke about very interesting things like AI, etc. And I think one of the probably hot topics for discussion could be that with the rise of AI, will the human employment rates become impacted? And hence, is it potentially more disadvantageous than advantageous from that perspective? Or how do we see that playing out in the future?
It's a very loaded question, and probably something we can spend hours debating. Uh, I'm not going to give you I'm going to give you more an MBA answer, a depends type of answer, but at least let me talk about how I see the impact of AI. And one of the folks that I tend to sort of see their research is McKinsey, and they had pointed out something very interesting. They said that, hey, there are only 5% of jobs which are totally automatable, just 5%, right? But close to every job is almost 30% automatable. So it's not really about complete job displacement. It's going to be the way we work today, that is going to keep changing. A lot of the mundane, repeatable, automatable tasks that we were doing are going to go away, right? Now, what does that mean for us as a workforce, right? On the one hand, it's great, right? What it means is that we can focus on doing the things which require innovation, the things which require creativity or high value work, as we say, right? But on the other hand, our job description are changing, and how does that impact what value are we bringing, right? How, what skills do we have to deliver this higher value, right? Those are going to be really, those are the things which are going to put stress on each one of us, right? And we have this debate always, right? It just has different names with respect to technology, right? Before it was automation, now it's AI, right? I think what we have to realize is, like Mr. Anderson said, it's the sound of inevitability. If there is economic benefit if there is societal benefit, right? Imagine you have like this top-notch AI algorithm which can diagnose cancer better, as opposed to the possibility that oncologists might potentially lose their jobs. Where will it weigh, right? So I think this is inevitable. I think what is important is how are we going to react to this? I see in the short term, actually more jobs getting created, more higher value work being done. But in the long term, especially after last year, how things have changed dramatically, I won't hazard a guess. But at least in the short term, I see it more advantages than disadvantages.
Sure. A
Mm.
question for you, Mukund, which is really to share your personal story. Last year has been just full of uncertainty, and that's what was the, I guess, the theme kind of running through. Um, with the pandemic having shaped life as it has, and knocking at our doors, how did you stick to your career plans? For yourself individually, both from a career plan professionally, but also any personal plans that you may have had. How did you make sure that you still continue to march ahead?
Sure. First of all, I would say I'm incredibly fortunate, right? Considering the ramification this has had on people and their jobs and their lives, I think I can't sit here and complain about anything. Honestly, it's been a tough year, but much, much, much better than what people have had to endure, right? So, for sure, I think different people have gone through different experiences. For me personally, I think the year was a year of great stress, and it was a year where you had to really come out of what you used to do normally to just brand new activities, brand new roles, and brand new problem statements. Right. So from a career perspective, it's actually been positive for me because I've been able to get myself into new use cases and work through. But even if for someone, I would say if it's not been positive, it's not something to really, lose too much sleep over. Careers. Now, when I used to hear somebody with 17 plus years of experience, I used to think, oh, these guys are just probably, going to step out very soon out of the industry, or, they're incredibly old. But now when I look at myself, I feel I'm maybe in the middle of my journey. So careers are incredibly long, and you will not have 1 year the same as the another, right? And I think taking a long-term view on what you want to do with your career is what you should do. And you might have incredible highs and incredible lows, but you look to adjust to that. And I think if you do that and you play the long-term game, I think you'll be fine.
I do agree with that because sometimes the external environment can be overwhelming,
Yeah,
especially one because you have very little control or influence over it. And
absolutely.
as a world, we've seen that so prominently last year.
Right.
Actually, I think 11th March was the day when WHO had announced COVID-19 to be a pandemic. So we are actually exactly 1 year from there.
Yes. Yeah.
Um, I have, a couple of questions which I could, bring up now. And the
Sure.
one that is standing out for me is a very interesting one. And going with our topic of can I have it all? The question
Mm.
is, do you agree that the answer to the question can I have it all is different for men and women? And if you think it is different, why? And if you think it's not
Yeah.
different, why?
So I personally believe there's the notion itself of can I have it all is flawed. To be honest, that's my personal belief that I think life is about trade-offs. Always, it's always about balance, right? And for everyone, the trade-offs are different. For everyone, the balance is different, right? Uh, are there is the world naturally geared towards set up towards being making it easier for men? Yes, I would agree. I think you can sugarcoat it or whatever, right? But that is the reality, right? It is the way it is set up. It is more challenging for women. But I think if any one of us, be it male or female, is looking for a can I have it all, I think it's it is going to lead to disappointment, is my this thing. I think what is more important is, can I have what I want, right? And I look at that, and what sacrifices does one need to make for that is what you have probably control on. And as you were saying, Sarina, like last year, right, it just threw everything out, right? So there are variables you control, and there are variables you can influence. There are variables which might be more difficult to control. So you play with the variables that you have, but for sure, it is more challenging for women. And while the narrative might be changing in a few places, we're still nowhere close to where we should be.
Sure. And, I mean, I'm quite happy to share my own
Mm.
perspective because um, the all is, I think, what needs to be defined. So I can say,
Yes.
yes, I can have it all, but what is it all? And like you rightly said, I do agree with the principle behind what you were sharing. That for me, I need to define what I want at that particular phase stage of my life, and then make that happen. And one of the principles that I live by now is, if you don't ask, the answer is always no. So if
Yes.
asking increases the probability from zero to just even one notch higher, it's absolutely worth it. And what I have seen in my experience is that a lot of times we do not ask, whether it's for support or it's for help or it's for options, and I think we lose out. So one message that I always like to share with people that I mentor, coach, or talk to is ask. You're never in a worse off situation by asking. So that's something that I absolutely kind of live by.
It's an
So that
incredibly powerful message, Sarina, and I think people don't appreciate it enough. People don't realize it enough, but it's incredibly powerful. And I've heard this from many people, but I see very few actually implementing it. So yeah, if there's one takeaway, I would say, yeah, definitely like use this. Very important.
yeah. Let me take one or two more questions, and then I'll,
Sure,
go into my kind of
sure. Yeah,
conversation topics. So we have also a question, which is a slightly technical one. So I'll give you a choice
mm,
on that one. What's
sure.
the difference between strong AI and weak AI?
So maybe even I'm not the right person to maybe answer that. And yeah, I wouldn't want to even hazard a guess. It'll probably end up giving out some wrong information.
Totally understand. So let's
Yeah.
take this one. How can one balance between personal and professional priorities? I'm assuming this is the
Yeah.
question. When there is 24 by 7 connectivity, and that again, I think is a very real life kind of situation. So
Yeah.
your views on that, Mukund?
Yeah. And when this whole COVID thing started, we just went into like full on mode, right? And all of us were just fully connected. And before we realized, that became our life, right? And I think, and it's really important. I think this is here to stay. So like when it started off, it felt like it was for a month or so. So it's normal, right? But now this is here to stay. And I think one of the things that at least I have realized, and it's what I can say worked for me practically, right? One of the events that you have in office, right, is that shutting down of the laptop, putting into the bag, right, and then stepping out, right? It's a circuit breaker event. It's a switch off event. If you are not creating this at home, you run the risk of just being continuously connected, right? And at least the way I was able to do this is like in the evening, set up a time for workout, right? Now, when this comes, this is also on my calendar. So it's a little like it feels like that's not how it should be, but it's really helped me because one, nobody blocks my time at that point, right? It's there, it's my time. And just before this, right, the whole prep of getting ready to get into that session, the like the delinking from work, and then spending time where you're just catching breath, so you don't have the time to think of anything else, just helped me significantly. And now I could still be working later in the night and maybe attending a meeting or things like that, but that I was doing before too, right? When I would go to office and probably do that. But this I would say this delinking event, right? You need to create these moments. You need to set out clear separation barriers. And for somebody it could be maybe this is family time and you block time for that, right? For somebody it could be time to go out for a walk or maybe paint or anything else, right? Which will get you to just totally de-link of work. And that I think is very, very important. Otherwise we'll all go crazy. Work is never going to end. That's one thing I've realized, that you never get to a situation where you say my work is over, right? It'll always be there. It'll continue to be there. You need to consciously take a step out of it.
Thank you for sharing that, Mukund. And this is actually a bit in continuation of when we were talking about how there is this difference of, uh, well, whether it's career options or career growth or the choices that men and women have to make. So, technology in the past has always been hyped up as an industry for men. Um, in your opinion, how can diversity and inclusion help in breaking that stereotype? So, what more could be done to create a different picture of this industry as we move forward?
Yeah, I think we are a little better off than some of the more traditional sectors, but again, nowhere where we should be. And but it's been very positive over the past few years. At least there's talk, there is clear acknowledgement of the impact that diversity and inclusion have. And the good part is that talk has gone beyond, it's the right thing to do, which you would typically think is the way which will move the needle, but to what actually moves the needle, that it is the right thing to do from an economic perspective too. It's the right thing to do from a growth perspective too, right? And now organizations are realizing this and this happening. I would say on the tech sector, where we tend to see a challenge is that while there might be entry into the tech space, in the middle of the careers, either there are drop-offs, right? Or transitioning to the program management space rather than technology. And I haven't at least got a handle to it. Like my wife did the same thing. And I spoke to her and asked her, once, why did you do it? Because she was a really good technologist. And she thought about it and said, I'm not sure. It just felt too hard. And I don't think the too hard was the bit because technology was a challenge. I think that it's the cliques that have got formed. It's that impression that has got formed that, oh, this is something that men can do, which is just plain wrong, right? And we are seeing enough women top technologists, enough women, CTOs do this. And Manas, who's a CEO, was having a discussion with top women technologists. And I think one of the advice that they gave, which I felt was really crucial and I really liked, was that stay in there. I think that, and again, it is just sounds very simplistic, but I know there's a lot of baggage behind. But their success mantra was that the fact that they just stuck it out. It was even when they felt it was hard, as you said, they asked, they reached out for help, but they stuck in there, and that's the reason why they are. So I think companies are realizing it more, so that is good. Now I think also with women realizing it, that they absolutely can do it and crack it in the technology field, right? And they're sticking there. We should hopefully see change in the not in the distant future, but hopefully very soon.
Like you said, it's not that the technology part is hard, right? We are all wired to
Hard.
understand things, and where you spend your time and energy, that's where things will improve, and you'll see that moving in a positive direction. And I've had this conversation multiple times across so many forum, that it is the situation which is in and around that can create those difficulties, or as they perceive, right? Which
Yeah.
is the whole dilemma in a woman's mind between cooking food because somebody wants to have only her cook the food rather than hire a cook and
Yeah.
get food made, versus from a child's perspective, whether it's their education or taking care of their basic needs. It's just historically been the woman who's played a more predominant role, and
Yes.
we're not saying that that is going to immediately change, but just because we have let's say, people within the family and society now understanding it more, also people stepping up to offer help is something that would be greatly appreciated. And that's the kind of message we can start spreading, that where you can support, step up and do that, whether it's caring for aged parents or in-laws, or it's looking after children, it's looking after the home responsibilities. I think all those combined make it difficult, because technology
Yeah,
for sure may require some extra time to get kind of on top of a particular coding language or a particular tool or a technique. But that doesn't make it different for men and women, very
for
very
sure,
honestly
for
speaking.
sure, for sure. And I
Yeah.
think this support structures are incredibly important. And I think in India, we have this the domestic help that we can get, right? Uh, One is, I think, societal resistance, right? Where we said like only X person should do it and nobody else, right? That those are
Yeah.
much more difficult challenges. But sometimes if it's a challenge of investment, like I strongly like encourage people, right? Today it might be 20-25% of your income that you're investing, say, in those support structures. But the rate at which you will grow, right? Think of it as a long-term FD, right? It's a sure banker, right? Invest that in early part of your career. Get everybody used to this sort of a structure. I think if people from the start are used to, this is how work will be, the responsibilities will be taken care of, then it's just easier. It's when you try and do this in the middle of your career, when you start doing this, right? The resistance to change is much higher.
Yeah. And like you said, there is a difference between a cost or an expense and an investment.
Yes.
So
Yes.
we have to also very clearly, I guess, in our own heads, kind of define that. And
Yeah.
there are long-term returns and there are short-term returns.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's
Yeah.
where it is.
It's
So Mukund,
disproportionate. I would say in support structures, at least, sorry, I just want to belabor this a bit, but
sure.
people don't understand. It's just disproportionate the rewards, the investment in support structures at the start itself, be it daycares or, domestic help. And it's just
Yeah.
disproportionate when it comes to your career. So do think about it seriously.
Um, Being a seasoned professional in the tech industry, what are your views on collaborating with technology and innovation to fill in this gender gap?
Yeah, I think technologies, when used well, can just have dramatic results. And I think for any problem of this scale, it has to come to our rescue, right? So I would say when it comes to acquisition of talent, right? Uh, with the technology that we have, we can create specific personas. We can reach out to targeted populations in a much, much better way, right? So unless we actively seek out, right, and we are able to identify, we are not going to build the pipeline. So for sure, at least, and we are seeing this a lot in the acquisition space. Uh, we are seeing technology, we are seeing, diversity enabled use cases uh, running really well. So for sure, I would say on that aspect, right? The second aspect is nothing speaks better than data, right? And again, using the power of data and technology to be able to build compelling use cases on why this makes sense, right? Uh, be it retention rates that you can show, right? Be it any cost benefit analysis that you can determine, be it access to more talent, right? Anything that you can use to build compelling use cases using technology and data will help in this narrative, right? Uh, we've all been forced into innovative methods thanks to Corona, right? And the remote working. And I think that's a lesson to all of us, right? There are ways that we can do it, but you need to force that innovation. It doesn't come naturally. We kept talking about it internally, for example, for a long time about, there should be more representation, there should be more representation. But that was just talk. It wasn't leading to any action on the ground. And then we created this program, which we call the glass window program, where we said that every senior leadership forum would have 33% at least women participation, right? And it'll either be through designation or it'll be through nomination, right? So it was sort of like reservation for access, not necessarily reservation for position, right? And it's just been dramatic. The transformation that we've seen, the quality of discussions have got elevated. The 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 I would say the role model visibility has increased dramatically, and the confidence that people who've got nominated to this, where they've been privy to all information, been part of the decision making process, has just been dramatic. So without we looking to break out of the mold and look at innovation, this is not going to happen. Right? So I would for sure, I think the collaboration tools and the ability to flexibly work out of where we want to and flexibly work when you want to. Uh, it used to be terrible, used to be this pressure when people would say at 6 o'clock if you're leaving or half day today, right? It just the subliminal messaging that it was sending, and it was pushing out women from the workforce. I think technology can help us definitely eliminate those, but it will need to be coupled with mindset. Just pure technology alone it's just a tool.
So, I was in a conversation with Manas a few months ago, and he spoke about this program. And of course, as you said, the pure quality of discussions and the decisions and the dimensions that come about with having a diverse set of people engaging in those conversations is absolutely fantastic. But to be very provocative, it is
Mm,
always something for us to think as to why it needed even something like that to get equal opportunity. So
for sure.
I think we all do believe, very honestly, that at the end, the fairness of the process in terms of meritocracy is very, very important. So, right? So there is no special privileges. However, what we have seen lacking a lot is this whole equal opportunity or the openness to consider gender diversity specifically, whether it's for open roles, whether it's for promotions, whether it's for any of that. And I think that's the mindset and that's the kind of practice that needs to be, broken down, and then new ways to be thought of,
I
which I
agree.
think which you must have also seen, right?
Yeah, I think a few years ago I was in the camp also of, it should be just pure merit and, obviously cream will rise to the top and so on and so forth, right? But I think to one this experiment and then just like the fact, right? Like the work from home, right? What was our perception about it a year ago? And what's our perception now, right? It's dramatically changed. So I think sometimes you have to force the experiment. You have to move things along, right? And you have to create the environment where people see the change and it will change their mindset. Because we can keep talking about it, right? But if you have these inherent biases which are so deep rooted, you will hear this but not necessarily internalize it. And I think we can't wait. I think it's we can't wait. We have to force some of these experiments. We have to do some of these innovations while keeping merit in. So even here, right, this is access. So we are not saying, hey, you are now part of the leadership, right? It's access, it's rotational, right? But the confidence that the people who come into this will get, right, that will accelerate their growth. The whole ecosystem around it will see that, wow, these are folks who are adding such tremendous value, right? And we need to be growing them. I think the effects are exponential, and we will need to force some of these things. And that's at least my mindset change over the past 2 3 years.
Sure. So, my last question, and then I do see a lot of participant questions, so
Mhm.
we'll go into that. Um, what can tech companies, and including like Nagarro, do to support, attract, and retain talent? And we'll bring in, of course, a bit of a gender kind of angle to this, especially to ensure gender ratios increasing and improving and getting where we want them to go.
Sure. I'll limit it to the gender because otherwise it's a whole distinct talk on, talent management and acquisition. But at least on the some of the things that I feel, right? I think the first is acknowledge. I just feel in, until we are willing to acknowledge that this is a priority area for us, this is something that we want to address. there is no action going to happen on the ground. It is not going to happen organically. If it had to happen organically, it would have already been there. Right? We are fighting centuries of stereotypes and bias. So you need to acknowledge that this is something you want to do. The second is act. When you once you've acknowledged, just that's what at least we discovered. Just talking about it is not enough. You need to put programs in place. You need to put measures in place. You need to capture data. You need to be able to calibrate it and continuously work towards it. And I think third, depending on like at least like depending on what type of an organization you are, go beyond your current ecosystem because ultimately you can only have that many women which are there in the pipeline, right? You can't produce them. You can only grow them, right, through the career, right? So, for example, the work that we do with WIT, right? The idea is to enable organization like this. I know many big tech firms work at the grassroots level, right? In encouraging STEM skills among women. So it needs to go beyond the org to also the ecosystem to be able to give women the confidence that they can come into this space and really thrive, and then give them the opportunity to showcase their talents. And I think considering tech is such a large employer of talent, and the fact that uh, the traditional stereotypes of physical strength or things like that, none of them exist here. Right? It's a place that we should be doing a lot better. We are improving, but nowhere close to where we should be. And that's I think at least those are three things that I can top of my head think of where tech can make an impact. Mm.
One of the
Sorry,
participant
Serena, I lost
questions
you in the. Sorry, I lost you. Could you just repeat that bit? I lost you for a
Sure.
second.
So
Yeah.
one of the participant questions is actually linked to what you were just saying, and it's really about specially abled talent. So what else now can be done by tech companies, especially in your view, to support, attract, and retain the specially abled talent? Is there some thinking around that happens in Nagarro?
Yeah, so we've got great inspiration from the Lemon Tree group. They've been pioneers in the space, and we actually sat with them and understood how is it that they are, integrating, especially in talent. And in the past couple of years, we've been working with them and NGOs who help train this talent and integrate them into the workforce, right? So be it a lot on the, I would say many of our functions, be it the finance space, be it the admin space, we've been able to get that in. Not so much on the technology, we do, but at least the NGOs that we've been working with, they are more focused on this space. Again, I feel the shift to these type of new workplaces, I think hopefully should help, because one of the big challenges that and it depends on especially able as to what are the challenges that you're facing, but at least the office infrastructure, right, the commute to office, right, those are challenges which at least can be taken out of the equation. So I do see a even stronger fillip towards integrating them and doing them more. But definitely, we again, for us, we need organizations which will help us supply this type of talent. If there are any, and if anybody has any recommendations, please do reach out to me. Would love to connect.
Super. Thank you. And Mukund, I do see further questions. I'm requesting viewers and participants to add in any more if they have. But let me pick
Yeah.
these out. Some of these things you've already alluded to in our
Yeah.
conversation,
Sure.
but maybe we could just spend a couple of minutes more on these. So one question is, how has the new normal brought about changes in work culture other than bringing in work from home?
Mm. Interesting question. I think so. Let me talk about what's first the challenge, and then I'll talk about the positive aspects. I think one of the challenges which people are facing is the absence of the water cooler conversations. The the there was a lot of ideas, a lot of things which came out of these serendipitous conversations that you just bumped into someone and hey, what are you doing? Oh, you doing this? Oh, we are also doing this, and how can we collaborate? Or things like that. So from an organization benefit, you're losing out on that, and from a just a sheer interaction among people and building of relationships, we're losing out on that. And we are doing virtual events and things like that, but I still feel we haven't yet got to a like a perfect substitute for that. So there is that bit on the culture side, I would say. The positive thing that I've seen is I think there is a lot more interaction, and it sounds perverse compared to my previous point, but we've seen that on the social platforms that we have, you know, people are now willing to step out of work and engage because that need is not being met, which was being met in office. So we are seeing a lot more interaction on the social space. We are seeing more collaboration happening there, and we are seeing a lot more energy in participation in these events. So for sure, I think that is changing. I think uh, there is also, I would say, there's a higher focus on 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 just like on the both from the client side and from our side. I think there's just more empathy. I just feel that there's this feeling of everyone feels we are in it together, and I think that's been a great rallying cry. uh, where clients would have been very fussed about infrastructure, they have relaxed themselves a lot more. Where people were a lot more of office is office and then the rest, that's where it all ends. Right now people are thinking of this more as, I need to help the client out, they are struggling, what can I do, right? So that both sides, the empathy has increased, and I think it's leading to some I would say some positive impact on the overall culture and the interactions. So yeah, these are some of the, at least I would say, key changes. Hi
Another
Suri.
question
Yeah,
Another question
sorry.
is specifically
Yeah.
for from a Nagarro perspective is that does Nagarro currently everyone is completely working from anywhere, or do you have a mix happening? How's that working out for your organization?
It's just been remarkable. We were in 5 cities uh, last year, March. Then after 6 months, we did a survey to find out, where everybody is, and we discovered 300 plus cities. So just the fragmentation, right? The diffusion of talent, it's just dramatic. Like I thought I was really good at geography, and I discovered cities that I didn't know of. So it's just been amazing. It's just been amazing at how the fragmentation of talent has been. And we haven't yet started opening offices. Uh, it's unlikely that we will do it in Q2 too, because we want to, again, our work doesn't necessarily demand, physical presence, and we would want to
Sure.
give as much opportunity to people to sort of be there. Instead, we are looking at expanding into like the way we've seen this already. In fact, we just announced this week that 4 more cities we are expanding into, and I think we will expand into more cities. I think we will see this. We anyway were proponents of distributed working, but I think this has got a fillip. Will we still be at 300 cities? I don't know. I don't know. I think let's see. As I said, the water cooler bit is also important, so we want to figure that piece out and see where we
Yeah.
go. But distributed working for us is here to stay. That's not going away. And there might be a component of pure remote working also, right, where you're not at all connected. But uh, I don't see that as the operating model for the entire org. Uh, it'll be more for maybe a small population.
Sure. And on a lighter note, like we've created a virtual way of working, we should create a virtual water cooler kind of a place.
For
Yeah.
sure.
And keep that open where people can keep going in and out, and whoever is there can have a
Yeah.
chat. So it's almost like
Yeah.
a one of those fancy computer games probably,
Yeah. Yeah.
which maybe that's how it'll be. I mean, if somebody
Maybe.
does
Yeah.
think of this idea, I'm going to patent it right away. And
Might be $1 billion idea, Serena.
yeah. So moving on to the last couple of questions, and then we'll wind up. So This question is: what advice would you give to people from non tech backgrounds trying to break into the technology fields?
It's a really important question, and the reason why I feel it's so important is because every firm that we talk to is today looking to become a technology company. It is where the future is, I think, and COVID has just accelerated that process, right? So, when we were young, we used to hear this: curiosity kills the cat. I say today, curiosity kills the cat. So, I think you need to really be curious about tech. Uh, there is no barrier, there is no access barrier to information today. Like what used to be purely what school have you gone to or what degree you have, all of those barriers have been just demolished.
Yeah.
You need to be curious, you need to understand the tech space, you need to understand how can tech in your domain make an impact, and be able to intelligently talk about it and intelligently figure out how to get it implemented. And I think if you can do that without being a hardcore techie, you can still do really well. So this marriage of your domain knowledge with how technology can augment it, I think that's where your curiosity should be, and that's where your skilling effort should be.
So, Mukund, the last question actually is something that you've already answered, but I'll read it out in any case, which is really that how can corporates do it? Do what? Well, what should corporates do to make gender diversity less talk and more walk? And I think you've already shared some practices from Nagarro and some of those things. So we let that be. On this
Yeah.
note, I would first like to thank all our audience and viewers and participants for staying with us, for continuing to support WITACE in our journey to support all of them. So thank you all very much. This is the 20th of our Witch Talk series, and I'm hoping we'll have many, many more. And Mukund, thank you very much for joining us today and sharing your candid views and your thoughts. And we hope that we will get you back soon for another discussion. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Serena, for this opportunity, and thank you to the WIT team. And a big thank you to all the participants. I hope this was useful for you. Feel free to reach out if there's anything that I can be of help. Thank you once again.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Bye.